Hello and welcome to the Mystic Feminine Fertility Podcast, a space to explore the wisdom of your body, your menstrual cycles, and the divine feminine energy that flows within you. My name is Annalise Yagyag-Jyoti, and I am a fertility awareness educator and holistic reproductive health practitioner. It is my mission to guide women to reconnect back to their bodies, to understand their menstrual cycles, and to heal holistically. If you're ready to embrace your cyclical wisdom, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Where are you at in your current menstrual cycle?
Oh, this is a tricky one. So full disclaimer. So maybe like this is off the record, on the record, whichever way we decide. But I guess I want to share it, but it's quite vulnerable in that. Well, I'll just tell you, and then you'll see what you think.
Yeah.
As in whether this is it's not contradictory, but I suppose I had the same niggle with my coach. We were like, "Do you feel comfortable talking about this? Does it matter?" So normally I would like in my practice as well, and when I run workshops and when I work with one-to-one clients, they do a cycle check-in because that's also something that I've always done. But where I'm at myself, I am on, well, I could check. I think it's about day 120 of my cycle. So I came off the pill after 2 years in July last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I was on the pill for the first time in my almost 40 years of life was because I was preparing for endometriosis excision, and I was getting, like, in the year when I decided to go on the pill, I was getting really bad endo flare-ups, like almost like attacks of like just bleeding out on the floor kind of situation. And very reluctantly, after consulting with my surgeon, I decided to go on the pill just so I could get through to the finishing line of the surgery. And then after the surgery, I wanted for my body to heal a little bit before I introduced new things or like took things away. And then I kind of did like a bit of a cold turkey situation last summer where I came off antidepressants, because the reason why I stayed on antidepressants was because the pill used to give me major depression, so a double whammy. And so I got my cycle back in September last year. So July to September, kind of waiting, doing all of my holistic practices and just staying with the moment and staying present. And I was so like, it was over 2 years of not having a period. And I was just so excited, and like, it was such a release. Oh, it was exhilarating. And I thought, oh, okay, this is good. It's less painful. All the work that I've done plus the surgery has paid off. And then had another cycle, and it was also fine. It was so much easier than the usual, what I used to know. And yeah, haven't seen it since. And obviously there's this thing of like, I can't really diagnose. Like, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a naturopath. Like, in the past, I've worked with a lot of holistic practitioners, and the first person who brought up endometriosis to me was a naturopath. But I just feel like with the skills and the knowledge that I have, I was able to still almost like decipher the test results and, kind of looking holistically at my entire life as it is today. I've realized that it's very likely that my PCOS has come to the surface. Not that one thing has been dealt with, which is endometriosis, and adenomyosis. I mean, adenomyosis is not really dealt with, but yeah, it's kind of quietened down. PCOS came to the forefront. So almost like, yeah, just peacefully awaiting what happens next. But I also know like my androgens are out of balance, and there's a few imbalances there. So I'm kind of working to bring that all into some sort of equilibrium, you know.
Yeah. How long have you known that you had endometriosis?
How long? I I think I suspected for quite a while.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, it must have been like whenever uh, Lena Dunham's book came out, the
Uh-huh.
first one. Oh, I don't know if she's written more, but yeah, her first one, like, I'm Not That Kind of Girl, maybe it was. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you remember it. And I was a big fan of girls. And I remember her talking about endo, and I was like, "Ooh, this sounds a lot like me." And that was like 2018, I'm guessing it's even earlier, 17. And then around 2019, I started working with naturopath. And in 2020, I started working with a menstrual cycle coach. And I sort of self-diagnosed. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I know this is what it is. And I wasn't already on like a supplement and diet protocol anyway, kind of tailored towards endo. But I still wanted to have a confirmation from a doctor. Um, and yeah, and then I got it like in June 2020. So it will be almost 5 years this year since
Since
I've
the
known,
surgery? Oh, since you've known.
yeah.
And for the surgery, did you end up doing ablation or excision?
No, no,
Neither.
excision. Yeah, I've done so much research, and
Mhm.
I think I spent like, I don't know, a month researching all the practitioners and all the methods, and I read all the books. I just really wanted to understand like what is it's not an easy decision to go under a scalpel, and I think
No?
it was never my first go-to, but having read books even from like surgeons that have more of a holistic approach, I just felt like that there is a line for me that, the holistic approach will just not be sufficient because I had bowel endo and I
Oh,
had there was a risk of bowel not excision, obstruction, bowel
uh-huh.
obstruction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of dictated my decision really, because up to the last moment I was a bit like, do I really have to? Is
Yeah.
it necessary? So
Mhm.
yeah.
One of my first episodes came out with a friend of mine, Morgan Skinner, who is an endometriosis expert, and it was
Mm,
in that talk where I actually learned about the difference between ablation and excision,
mm,
and about really what endometriosis is. While I
mhm,
knew about it, from certain experiences and from my training and from even working with clients, it was just an opportunity to dive into really the understanding of it. She has a medical background. And so getting to talk to her about that was great. So for anyone who's like, what are these words? Like what is excision? What is ablation? What is endometriosis even? I'll link that episode in the show notes. Um, but with this, I'm
amazing.
curious, you said after that symptoms of PCOS started to show up. And so I feel like
Mm,
endometriosis and PCOS are two things that have started to become more popular in the worlds of women's health. And I'm not
mm,
sure if they're becoming more prevalent or if we're just actually learning how to diagnose and see these things.
mm,
Did you
yeah.
suspect that you had PCOS before your surgery and before coming off of hormonal birth control?
Hmm. Yeah, I did. So I've always had depending on like there's like different diagnostic criteria, but I think looking at I forgot what they're called, but looking at both, I still fulfilled most of the criteria.
Yeah.
So acne, hirsutism, which is excessive hair growth. Um, the only thing I didn't have was irregular periods, but I did have uh, polycysts on my ovaries. So
Mhm.
it just depends on and then like depending on what you focus on, because it's a group of disorders rather than just one illness. I
Absolutely.
think It depends what you focus on. And really, what I've come to realize on this journey of working with other people's cycles and my own, and this journey of healing, is that it's very, it's really just more about like what it is. It's not so much about finding a label, it's about what it is that is affecting my day-to-day life and how I can make things easier for myself. So if finding out where your disorders or like the
Hmm.
dysfunctions sit, for lack of a better word, dysfunctions, is something that is going to get you to a better place, your mind, body, soul, and mind, body, soul, and spirit.
You're speaking to this like embodied connection of how the cycle gives us
Mm,
insight into so much more than just our physical health, but our emotional health, our
mm,
mental health, our spiritual well-being.
yeah.
When did you realize in your life, in your personal journey, um, that there was a soul, a spirit? When did you start to get into spirituality?
I would say just over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, and I think when I think about it now, it feels like an undefined, kind of blurry point in my life. But at the same time, if I look at where it was when I have for years struggled with my mental health, and therapy has proven to be not unsuccessful, but just like a bit futile in like in long term. Like it didn't feel, and it also didn't feel like being in therapy for the rest of my life was the answer.
Yeah.
Um, and particularly about now almost 11 years ago, 10, 2014, um I started having, well, my debilitating period started from when I was 20, but 2014, I think it was like a peak of it. And I ended up in A&E. So is that the same in America, like the emergency department? Um, what is it called in the US?
You got it. The emergency department or the emergency room. Hmm.
Yeah, emergency room. Yeah. So we say A&E, accident and emergency. Um, so I ended up like going there all the time because I was, well, I really didn't know where to go essentially because my doctors were like general practitioners were just sending me away and saying there's nothing wrong with me. Gynecology was sending me away. Um, so a lot of it, I think, manifested obviously in my poor mental health.
Hmm.
And it was, I think the journey was sparked. It was like a mixture of things. But in 2014, I was actually diagnosed with PMDD.
Hmm.
And I was assigned mindfulness-based therapy.
Okay.
And I think that sort of sparked something for me, and yeah, and then yoga joined in, and where I live in London, there's a massive spiritual community. And so, yeah, and I just started going to yoga classes, but I don't remember anyone in particular being, oh, hey, Martina, this is interesting. I think I had to like really just dig it out for myself, like pave my own way with this because um, I had a very eclectic collection of friends. And I don't remember anyone in particular being so much into spirituality. So only then, as I embarked on that journey, on that path, I met people that were more aligned and, didn't want to stay up drinking until 3 a.m. and things like that. So for me, it was that kind of moving away from numbing and moving towards, like opening my heart and at the risk of being more exposed to hurt and pain in a way.
Absolutely. And it sounds like, through that answer, you were talking about spirituality, but also the ways that it interweaved with your medical journey and with your desire to get help and support. And people really just like you being like, something's wrong, and multiple, medical professionals being like, nothing's wrong. Like that is infuriating. And of course, you have to dig around and find your own answers. When you know that something's wrong, you're going to the people that are supposed to help, and they're not. And this is something sometimes I get in my head and I'm like, oh, it's just a problem in the US. Like, oh, it's fine everywhere else.
Mm,
And then I get all these reminders. It's like, no,
mm-mm, no.
no, this is somewhat universal. And, we're learning so much more about the female body, about even the menstrual cycle, things that have been around forever, but we're just starting to study it and get curious about it in new ways. And it takes,
Mhm,
I think they say somewhere between like 7 to 15 years for research, once it's proved, to actually
mhm,
matriculate into uh, hospitals, into medical care. So we're in
yeah.
this in between of like the world is starting to, at least my world, is starting to care a little bit more
Mm,
about these
mhm,
things,
mhm,
and medical practitioners are doing their best to catch up.
yeah.
I we're I'm curious how to phrase this question. So it sounds like you were going to doctors, to your primary care provider, to your gynecologist, to different people. And then you started to find some more holistic like practitioners. Was that
Mhm.
something that started after you were looking at these other medical providers, or was this something that has been a part of your life for longer, orienting towards holistic healing modalities?
I like that question because I often wonder about this myself, and it took me a while to like put the pieces of the puzzle together. So when I was a kid, I come from Poland, and like in Slavic culture, there's a lot of herbalism that is just intuitive and natural.
Mm-hmm.
And only later, after I started exploring things, thinking, oh, I found this new thing, I found out that there were things that my grandma, my auntie, my mom were doing when I was a kid that were totally, pagan basically.
Yeah.
And I also as a kid, my parents used homeopathy, and it healed me of many different issues. So I guess the openness was there. And almost like an intuitive knowing that that's the path that I should take. Um, and this desire to, um, like merge natural with medical, because I don't dismiss the medical system as such and medications. I just think there has to be, yeah, it has to be like a multimodal approach, basically.
Yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be one or the other, black or white. Like there are different
Mm.
ways that we can mix and match, and where they can be used to really complement each other. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that's something that you've really explored and experienced benefit with. And I know
Yeah.
I have too. Like getting to, do a little bit here, a little bit there.
Mm.
It can be so easy to fall into this like black and white thinking and all or nothing.
Mhm.
So it's such a great reminder that you're giving us of like, no, you can, you can go to your doctor
Mm.
and your
Mhm.
acupuncturist. You can drink
Yeah.
tea and make salves and
Yeah.
an antidepressant. Like you can mix and
Yeah.
match these things.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're all there for us to resource ourselves with, So it's about like discerning what it is that is what mix is going to serve me. Um, so I think, yeah, I'm very much like it should be um intuitive. It's a process, and it's not one size fits all kind of
Mm-hmm.
structure at all.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that during this time of, wanting to get answers, of seeking healing, of seeking support, you found a menstrual cycle coach.
Yeah,
What is a
yeah.
menstrual cycle coach?
So I what is a man? Well, it's basically a person, and I think at the time she was she was a doula. So she came from being a doula. I'm
Right.
trying to remember. So
Uh-huh.
she definitely worked with pregnancy and postpartum. And she started noticing how, meeting women at that stage of their journey was a little bit, it was almost like too late because they never had that connection to the cycle. And then suddenly it's like, I'm postpartum, I have no period, I have to like feed the baby and all of that jazz. So I think she just started studying it, and I'm not sure whether she's quite famous in the UK. You might know her, Maisie Hill. She wrote Period Power.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's quite, yeah, she's amazing. So I basically picked up her book in 2019 because I knew something was up and I had no understanding of my cycle. I just knew I had problematic periods, but what about the rest of it, and where are they coming from and what are the contributing factors and all that jazz. So I yeah, I read her book and I fell in love with her because it was just like a really no bullshit approach to hormones and very kind of simplifying everything, but like still giving us enough of the knowledge that we didn't get in schools that, it was rich and potent and you could do something with it for yourself. And then she started a membership and I was one of the founding members of the membership. So I
Oh.
got to be coached by her and together with her help and the help of my naturopath, we basically were like, yeah, you have endometriosis. Yeah, I have endometriosis. And then only then I went to see an endo doctor, which
Hmm.
I also sought out for quite a while. Because there aren't many of them in Europe. There's like 100
Hmm.
or less. And I think like 100 in America. I've read some statistics a while ago. Maybe it's changed, but yeah,
It's not a
it's not
lot.
great.
They're few and far between, and like it takes time to find one that you trust, to find one that
Hmm.
you think is going to do a good job because
Yeah.
like you were saying, there's a deep level of vulnerability there. And
Mm,
especially with endometriosis, like now people kind of know what it is and they know the term, but research is still kind of building up on how to really do excisions and,
mm,
all the
hmm.
things. I'm curious, this is kind of a sidetrack, but
Yeah.
one of the biggest barriers to treatment for endometriosis, specifically around excision and ablation, is the cost. Um,
Hmm.
is that
Yeah.
barrier as well in the UK?
It's a little bit different in the sense that, we have the NHS National Health Service in
Mm,
the UK. And because I am a Polish citizen as well, as in Polish national, whatever, like I don't live here, but I live in between, I have a passport here. I can still I I can actually take advantage of the National Health Service here,
right.
but it's even lower standards than National Health Service in the UK. So it's very hard to see a specialist, but somehow um, it's possible, a little bit more possible, I guess. If you go private, it's not as expensive as it is in the US.
Hmm.
And also comparing like from the UK to Poland, it was much cheaper for me having, earned money in the UK to then pay for private care here.
Yeah.
And then I got a surgery on the NHS and it wasn't done very well.
Okay.
So that was the burn in a way, I got burned in that sense. Um, and that's how I ended up going private in Poland, which, still I don't know how much I think in the US is probably in like 10,000 of dollars, probably tens and yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
It can be, yeah.
yeah. So I think here it's a little bit you could probably get a surgery in Europe because I know a lot of women also travel to Romania, to Germany. You could probably get it for under £10,000. And I don't mean just with some random surgeon, that's with, a specialist that is yeah, there aren't that many of. So yeah, so it's not accessible to everyone. I mean, I had to save up for a year and fundraise. So yeah, it wasn't easy either.
Now, you said that was surgery was in July.
No, it was in August 2023.
2023. So you're, a year and a half out. Am I doing math right?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, yeah, you are. Yeah, I
So
was
a year
thinking
and
the
a half
same.
out. Are you glad that you did it?
Yeah, I'm very happy that I did it. I used to have like daily pain
Mm-hmm.
regardless of where I was in my cycle. I still did everything, but the cost of that was exhaustion and like I had the biggest change is my digestive issues. Like I have no bowel problems, no
Great.
digestive issues whatsoever. Yeah.
Because the endometriosis you said was like at risk of obstructing the bowel, like it was growing.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah,
Wow. And so,
yeah.
what type of support before you were doing your surgery, when you were working with your menstrual cycle coach,
Mm,
and your naturopath, what kind of support and education were you exploring in
mhm.
regards to what you were experiencing?
So I guess I was looking at um the biggest thing was looking at my entire cycle
Mm,
rather than just zooming in on the period. And a lot of it was mindset work. So as a menstrual cycle coach myself, that's what I work with people on the most is reframing, the struggles that they have into opportunities for growth or basically sort of turning any sort of kind of difficulties or overwhelm or burnout into a potent soil for something new to grow. And I think that's basically without me knowing at the time yet, that's what was happening. So it was about being with Endo rather than making it into an enemy as well.
yeah.
And also, almost like I know we talked about it a lot today, but I don't necessarily like my identity is not tied to endometriosis. Like
Right.
it's just something that is a part of me, but there's loads of different parts of me. And I think it's important to talk about endometriosis because it's it's huge and it affects so many people. But and I'm all here for like smashing those taboos and talking about something that is so misunderstood as well. But the biggest part for me was not letting it define me. And I guess by looking at the cycle as a whole and like understanding, where I had like dips of energy and then understanding how that's linked to my hormones and also understanding, um, where I was performing the best in my life and utilizing that
Mhm.
really helped me because then the inner critic, which by the way is called, I recently gave it a name. She's called Killjoy Eleonora. I
Uh-huh.
do, I do apologize to any Eleonoras out there. I don't know, it just came to me and she just became Killjoy Eleonora.
Mhm.
So Killjoy Eleonora just can't come in anymore and be like, oh, but you should have been productive at this time. So I think that's really helped me. And I guess as much as I say, I don't identify with endo as like defining me. Um, I did at the time before surgery, I did have chronic health issues. So I was in the chronic illness community, and I mean, I still have hormonal issues. They're never gonna just poof disappear.
Mhm.
Um, so I am still in that community. So um, it just taught me, like working with the cycle has taught me how to honor myself and what my body needs
Yeah.
better. And hence why, I think when I started the kind space, it was more like a platform. I just wanted to talk about my own healing journey. And it was all about just that kindness to myself through all of these tools that I've been acquiring. Um, so yeah, but again, it's a daily work. It's not something that you just do and it's done. So it's always returning to that and these resources.
Yeah. And it sounds like you were doing some cycle tracking in that too. When you zoom out and you're not just looking at the bleed,
Yeah.
Um, what else were you looking at in the cycle other than the bleed? You mentioned
Yeah.
like some energy levels, but how were you like tracking these things?
Yeah. So the way I tracked at the beginning, so I can tell you like how my journey with tracking has changed.
Great.
So I started because I love it. Basically, I started from pen to paper on a dial, and just like every single day there was loads of notes.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I then I think I had like 3 years worth of those. And I got loads of data and I could compare, but it was much harder. It's much harder to see on like 20 pieces
Yeah.
of paper. Oh, wait, on the 22nd day. But I did do it because I felt like that there's so much release about putting pen to paper, and it's so much more like embodied, and you remember it more when you have written the date, and it's almost like some, not somatically, but like subconsciously you start remembering the patterns when you spot them as you go.
Hmm.
Um, so what I was tracking, I, I basically was looking at how I was feeling, what I was thinking, because for me that was also linked. So it was like emotions, thoughts, um, what was hurting, apart from the obvious. So if I had like um, a period of high pain, then maybe I wouldn't talk about it every single day. I would try and notice what else out of the ordinary was hurting, but like knowing that, okay, this is the high pain. And then I would track obviously like the bleed and its intensity. Sometimes I did track for a while, I did track my mucus, and I did measure my temperature.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like from the practical things, that would be it. But then yeah, the emotional and the thoughts, I think that was quite big for me, because then I could see, with like depressive moods and stuff, I could identify where in the cycle I would see a dip, and prepare myself for it, basically.
Mhm. And do the mindset work, it sounds like. So there's like this level of becoming
Mm.
aware of what the thoughts are of when they're showing up. And
Mhm.
then what type of tools do you have in your toolbox of shifting mindsets?
So, I mean, okay, so yeah, I was gonna say like how I kind of transitioned with the tracking, because then that links with that. So, initially I was very diligent, and it felt, it felt like a homework that I was doing in order to get to that embodied knowing.
Yep.
And once I've done years and years, well, it was almost 3 years of that, I moved to a spreadsheet, because I needed information for my doctor on
Yeah.
exactly when I was hurting the most. So
Mhm.
we could identify, and also for my naturopath, actually, we wanted to know. Um, but just before, like in the year before my surgery, and now that I came back to cycling, um, I went back. Well, it feels like I went back to like the original method, which is, and I don't mean original method as in someone invented it, but like the kind of the embodied knowing. So once you have the data and you understand yourself better, then you can almost like just tune in to whatever is happening and take note as you go. I would still journal, but I wouldn't, like, it doesn't have to be on a dial. It doesn't have to be day after day. It's almost like you get to a point where you just know, and
Yep.
then you can help yourself. I mean, in terms of mindset tools, it's it's a lot of reframing around, for example, if it would be, I don't know, like anxiety about being in pain, I would um, do practical things, like have like a period kit, that I would take with me. I would look at what I would wear on that day. So then if I start bleeding, I'm prepared. So that's more practical. But in terms of mindset, obviously that was also relieving a lot of anxiety and
Yeah.
anxious thoughts. So yeah, just to give you an example. And I guess loads of it sounds so trivial now, maybe because I've been doing it for so long, but like just breathing and sitting, And I don't even mean meditation. Sometimes it's just like sitting for 5 minutes and breathing into your body and making contact with your body and your stomach and your womb and this entire area. Um, for me, could shift so much, and I know it does work for other people as well.
Absolutely. Embodiment practices, somatic practices have been a huge part of my journey and of my practice working with people. Like the shift that can occur when you just
Mm,
take the time to slow down and to do something loving, or sometimes
mm,
just something neutral towards your body. Like we spend so much time out of our bodies, especially
mhm,
for someone who's experiencing pain and discomfort. There is this normal nervous
mhm,
system response of wanting
mhm.
to get out of pain, of wanting to
Yeah.
not leave the body. And so this simple, but sometimes really challenging act of like, let me lay on the floor and put my hands on my belly and breathe into
Mhm,
my womb and call it a womb and like
mhm,
breathe and not think that I'm mad at my body, not think that I'm in pain or that I'm doing something wrong, like just
mhm,
breathing.
mhm,
And like in my mind it's something that always sounds so simple, but like
mhm,
so potent. And you have a yoga background and a holistic health background, as do I. Like these tools, like a lot of the really potent ones are
mhm,
so simple. It's just a matter of actually doing them, of
mhm,
releasing like mental blocks and self-sabotage, and like
mhm.
try it, do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we are so like deep into this journey that for us it feels so simple. And then sometimes maybe that's why I say, oh, it sounds so trivial for me to explain that. But a lot of people, they're like, what do you mean breathe into my womb? Like they would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when I, try, like I wouldn't say my friends are my potential clients, but I do try to support my friends. And I
Yeah.
almost like wait sometimes for them. Not all of them are in this space
Yeah.
of work or like spiritual at all. Um, but when they come to me and ask me, I'm like, oh, you're ready. Amazing.
I am
Oh,
here to answer
yeah.
your question. So,
Yeah.
so what does it mean to breathe into the womb?
Do we have a definition even? I guess it's about, just becoming aware of your body. And what does it mean to be aware of your body is
Mhm.
like being here now. I even have this yesterday I was in a women's circle actually, and a
Mm.
friend mentioned this to me, and I put it on my notebook. Hey, come back here. As in, can you see it?
When you hold it right in front of your face, yes.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I see it.
There you go.
I'm back.
So it's about being here now,
Mhm.
right? That's what, like breathing into them. It's taking deep breaths from your belly, maybe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just connecting. For me, a lot of it is about the hands as well. And I started training in Reiki last
Right.
year, so I'm exploring that as well. Um, you know, your hands can really be almost like a portal to that connection energetically.
Mhm.
So I guess for beginners, like what would you say? Because you can't really, I don't feel like you can convince someone that everything is energy if they don't believe in that. But I suppose if they're open,
Mhm.
they just what you usually do in mindfulness, if you teach mindfulness, I can imagine well, I have done mindfulness courses myself, and it's just about sitting with it, with your breath, with yourself, with your body,
Mhm.
and just seeing what emerges for you, I guess. Because it could be different for everyone, right?
Absolutely. A lot of this comes down to like our individual backgrounds, our nervous system, our trauma
Mm,
history, like all these things play a role. And so I appreciate you saying like, yeah, like it's simple, but like it can be very confusing at first, like figuring out
yeah.
what these things are. Normally when I'm introducing someone to this concept, it's about like it is meditation. It is training
Mhm,
your mind
mm,
to be present with the moment. So we're giving the
mhm,
mind a drishti or a point of focus that is not moving. And in this case, it's the womb. So it
Mm,
isn't something that you can see, at least
mhm,
looking down. It isn't necessarily even like you put your hands on your belly, but like, there's a lot of things in the belly. It's not just the womb, but
mm,
it's a contact point and it's a
yeah.
space to bring your awareness to. And so like
Mhm,
I often use the term like let your awareness rest here. But in
mhm,
order for the awareness to rest, there is an element of training the mind,
yeah.
especially if there's like, if you have a trauma history that makes it challenging
Mhm,
to like be in your body, which a lot of
mhm,
us do or
yeah.
have. And so there's this element of like, n- trying to keep the awareness at the womb,
Mhm,
at the belly, at the hips, whatever your grounding point is.
mhm,
And then if the mind wanders, that's
mm,
what it does. That's okay. Just once you notice that the mind has wandered, you bring it back and you breathe.
mhm,
Breath can
mhm,
be such a wonderful tool,
mm,
dynamic. It's not just
mhm,
focus on your belly, there's movement.
mhm,
The belly is
mhm,
moving. You can either
yeah.
watch your breath or you can shift your breath. So it can be an interactive element as well. Um,
Mhm,
and really, like, I just try to come back to this concept of like, don't make it harder than it has to be. Like, literally, put your hands on your belly and
mhm,
breathe.
mm,
Just let your
yeah.
awareness keep bringing your awareness down to
Mhm, yeah.
notice what
And
comes up.
yeah, notice what comes up. And I think what is often helpful as well, what I found helpful, is visualizations. So
Mhm.
any kind of, you know, visualizations that connect the womb with the rest of your body, either up or down, or
Mhm.
like actually grounding you or rooting you in where you are sitting. Sometimes it's almost, even though it feels like more advanced, it's actually easier because you can, everyone has an imagination and it can look
Mhm.
different for everyone, and you have no control over that. But if you give them an image, they can play with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Adding that
quite like
element
that.
of creativity and play and interactivity. And
Mm,
like what we're seeing, like, people have been meditating and visualizing for all of human history,
mm,
especially when we look at the yogic traditions. But
mhm,
now that, the West is really starting to study these things, we're
mm,
seeing that this act of the imagination, of visualization, of, getting your mind to conjure images that may or may not actually be there is
mhm,
really supportive in maintaining brain health,
mhm,
supportive
yeah,
in maintaining your long-term cognitive abilities. Like, so
mhm,
it's not just this like woo woo, let me picture roots growing into the earth, which like I'm all about. I am like so woo woo. But I can also like have these conversations of like, no, this is good for you. It's a grounding
yeah,
exercise.
yeah,
It is mindfulness presence. It's supporting your
mhm,
brain health, your womb health, your
mhm,
embodiment, your sensation of interoception, your ability to like be in your body and see what's there.
mhm,
I
mhm,
find, time and time again, I've done a lot of things within the realm of women's health. I started first by doing, education for
mhm,
teens about what the menstrual cycle is. And,
mhm,
I've taught yoga for many years and I do like women's circles, cacao ceremonies, womb
mhm,
yoga and dance. And like the center point of my teaching has been around fertility awareness, specifically for
mhm,
birth control. Uh,
mhm,
but all of these things have taught me like my work really isn't about like one thing or the other, a tool or a skill. It's about this embodiment piece.
yeah,
Everything that I do
mhm,
is an invitation for myself to step deeper into my body, to be more
yeah,
present, and to just
yeah,
like when I work with a coaching client, it's like it's great if you can take your BBT. That's awesome.
mhm,
Here's the way that that can support you. But what
mhm,
I really care about is, do you feel safe in your body right now?
mhm,
Feel connected to your body? Do you have
mhm,
the skills, the tools, and support to
yeah,
cultivate that awareness? Like that is
yeah,
the center point of
yeah,
like what I think the world needs,
mhm,
what the world wants.
mhm.
And it's the center point of this revolution of embodied awakening.
Yeah, I love that revolution of embodied awakening. Mm.
Revolution of embodied awakening. Like it's happening. I see it.
Yeah.
I feel it
Hmm.
in the
Hmm.
world around me. And sometimes like the tools, the things that I'm offering on the surface, like look different because I like to have a wide toolbox. I like to have different things
Mhm.
that pull out for different times for different people.
Mhm.
Like what it comes down to is this felt sense of like how can we get back into our bodies in a way that is safe and supported, embodied, and
Mhm.
juicy. Like there's so much goodness here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think what you said about playful also resonates with me because I decided this year I want to do things and share things that are playful.
Mhm.
And it's not my word of the year, it's more like the intention, how I want to feel. And I think with these practices, what I often work with is to not add another thing to your to-do list. It's more about a ritualistic type of practice, or almost like a self-devotion ritual,
Yeah.
um, than something to lynch yourself with because you haven't done it. And also that, to me, that adds to that embodiment piece, giving yourself loads of grace and compassion with it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Grace, compassion, kindness.
mm,
And like in the yogic tradition, like we come back to this term of svadhyaya, a lot of
mm,
self-study, of
mhm,
self-knowledge. And so sometimes we need to be aware of when we're self-sabotaging. Like if we're
mhm,
setting up something in our lives to be ritual, to be supportive, and we're not doing it, yes,
mhm,
have grace, have compassion, but also I work with clients a lot. And honestly, I have to do it for myself all the time because I'm so stubborn at my core. I'm so stubborn.
mhm.
And it's like, okay, so this is something that you want to do, that you
Mhm,
know will be beneficial, that when you do it feels good. So, like, what's the block? Like, why aren't
mhm.
you doing it? What's the
Yeah.
self sabotaging behavior, belief, or is it not actually aligned? And so, like, knowing, when to, one of the things that my teacher says is when to push and when to hold
Mhm,
this level of knowledge and loving yourself either way, not
mhm,
pushing out of, punishment, not
mhm.
holding out of, weakness or like self
Yeah,
pity, but like
yeah.
having the tools and skills and curiosity
Mhm,
to
mhm,
grow in
mhm,
this way, to
mhm,
cultivate different practices. And
mhm,
sometimes, yeah, like I totally agree. Even earlier, you mentioned tracking was feeling like homework. And this is
mhm,
something that comes up so much in my work. So I
mhm,
teach the Justice method, which is it's a strict symptothermal method. Like every
mhm,
day, every time that you go to the bathroom, you are checking for mucus. You are
mhm,
making observations throughout the day. You are taking your BBT in the morning. Definitely not, unheard of. It's not, like crazy, but it's work, and it
mhm,
requires a steadfast dedication.
mhm,
And for a lot of people, they come into the work and they're like, "This feels like homework," and I'm like, and they're upset and triggered by it, and it's like, yeah, I can totally see that. So like what do
mhm,
we need to do here? Do we need to hold or do we need to
mhm,
push? Like,
mhm,
is it worth, like, do you want to
mhm,
put in the work for this right now, or do you want
mhm,
to kind of find another way of reaching your main goal? Is your goal
mhm,
actually to prevent pregnancy, or is your goal to be fully embodied, like, and you can have both of
mhm,
those goals, but just like as
mhm,
an example, like
mhm,
getting to this core of like, what do you want? How
mhm.
can we get you there? Because so much of the womb
Yeah.
energy is creativity and desires.
Mhm,
It's like, what
mhm.
do you want? What do you
Yeah.
create? You are not passive in life.
Mhm,
You are a powerful creatrix.
mhm.
What are we doing?
Yeah, yeah. I
Center.
love that. I love that. Yeah, I think there is something about like that self-devotion that requires consistency. Like they're not the polar opposites. Like you can be self-devoted,
Mhm.
um, and also just stay consistent with it.
Yeah.
Like and I think a lot of like that's something that I'm always working with, like you said, as well. When am I almost like self-sabotaging and taking the power away from myself, or like not allowing myself um to just be self-loving to myself. So yeah, it definitely like tracking a cycle can bring up all sorts of things and like unearth roots of, the real roots of what's really happening with you. And I guess that also brings us to like talking about the nervous system and everything that kind of sits there, that when you do this simple practice and you're trying to fit it around your life, or fit it in your life, or make it become a part of your life on an intuitive level, um it's it will really shed a light on what you need to look at in your life and in your history as well, I think.
Absolutely. There is such a wealth of knowledge and curiosity within our own bodies. There's so
Mhm.
much that we are able to excavate and find and learn. And
Mhm.
like womb work to me is nervous system work. Like
Mhm.
to be in
Mhm.
your body, you have to cultivate a sense of safety and curiosity.
Mhm.
Like, finding ways where your nervous system feels supported, but also to an extent, like healthily challenged,
Mhm.
not just, shut down and not
Mhm.
hyperactive, but somewhere in the middle where you're, what's the word, like ventral vagal and polyvagal theory, where you are
Mhm.
relaxed, but you are
Mhm.
social and engaged and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
moving
yeah,
through
yeah.
life. It's so intertwined for me, this womb work
Mhm.
and this nervous system work. And like you were saying, paying attention to the womb will bring up
Mm.
all sorts of things. The amount of
Mm.
people that work with me, that probably the most common thing that happens in my work is
Mm.
people come to me
Mhm.
because they really want to avoid pregnancy and they want to do it without hormonal birth control. And, I say, great, that is a tool within my toolbox. Let's get started. And then through that, like they show up and, in the beginning, they're not charting and they're having
Mhm.
some sort of a resistance. This is so common. And so, then as the guide, I sit with them, we do our exercises, our practices, our inquiry. I support them with education and the tools. But the
Mhm.
biggest thing that comes up is people with this fear that, they won't be able to get pregnant when they want to.
Mhm.
And so balancing this like current desire to not be pregnant, but then with this underlying fear of like the unknown is really what it comes up with.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
know. The
yeah,
womb is full of unknowns.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is the cosmic mystery. Like it is everything.
It is. I think so. Like the biggest piece of the work that I do is sitting with uncertainty
Mm,
and how it's okay to not know, and how actually this doesn't have to be dysregulating for your nervous system, because uncertainty can provide space for growth and transformation and creation basically.
yeah.
And there's something that I said in one of my workshops, and I didn't even realize that I was saying it. And then someone wrote it. She was like, "Yeah, you said it. You said this, and I really loved it. And I made like an art piece out of it." She said, "You have an entire." I said, but she said it. You have an entire universe inside of you. And I was like, "Oh, really? I did say that? Yeah, yeah, you do."
Uh-huh.
But it's exactly what you just talked about. Like there's just so much. It's like a multitude of it's like a multi-potentialite thing inside of you, and it all comes from within, from the core, and I guess yeah, the womb as the source of creation and creativity. So yeah, I really resonate with that.
Mm. And so you touched on it here and there, but what kind of people are
Mm.
drawn to your work or vice versa? What type of people are you calling in to work with you?
So it's a mixture, I guess, but you know, um, I've been doing workshops for about 4 years, and then I started coaching last year. So I have to say, like, I was very enthusiastic about coaching when I first started, and then I've realized, okay, I'm going to take it slow. Like, I'm still at the beginning of my journey. I need to suss out not how I'm doing things, but more like who I'm doing it with and for whom and like what are the problems that I'm solving. So I suppose at this point, I still work with a mixture of people. So it could be people that have some kind of cycle related issues and they want to understand their cycle better. And maybe they're seeking a diagnosis, or maybe they just need some encouragement on their journey of seeking a diagnosis, and some sort of support, empowerment almost. Um, it could be that they are already navigating the medical system and they need support with that in terms of their nervous system and how triggering it can be for them. They could be people who are trying to live um, almost like a different path. So it could be entrepreneurial path, or they're just trying to figure out how to live a little bit differently and more cyclically as well. So at this point, I'm still open, but I also feel like my work, because my like business owner career started with photography, and I've worked with spiritual business owners. I'm kind of understanding now that these are my people for all of this work, because my work is all about, and I feel like you said something similar actually about empowerment. So like all of the work that I do is about empowerment. So yeah, and so I am my ideal client in a way, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So yeah, so I think that's where I'm at with who I am speaking to and who I'm trying to bring into my tribe.
Mm.
Um, and and I was gonna say, like with the spiritual business owners, it could be people at the beginning of their journey as well, who know they're going to be on that path, but maybe they're not yet on that path.
Trying to figure
But
out
it's not,
the steps
yeah,
getting started.
yeah, yeah.
Finding support for the what can be a daunting journey, especially at the beginning.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I love that, there's a lot of uncertainty in the entrepreneurial life as well. So
Mm,
I see that could definitely come up in different forms of your work. So
yeah.
what are you currently offering in the world, and where can people find you?
So at the moment, I coach one-to-one, and I have a 3 or 6 month coaching container, which is called Cycle Alchemy,
Mm,
and it's a very kind of emergent process where we start from somewhere where maybe you have the person has some sort of cyclical challenges, or it could be challenges in their business, or it could be burnout, and maybe they haven't yet fully linked it to the cycle, but they have an inkling that they need to be more connected to the cycle.
yeah.
And essentially, it could be that they want to improve how they show up in their business or how they show up in their life. But I think for me, those things have become interchangeable. It's like if you are a person in the world and you have a small business, that's it.
Yeah.
That's just for you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so at the moment I'm doing that, and I also run women's circles, which I used to call menstrual circles. Now they're womb circles, and those are mostly they used to be in the UK, but now I've been doing them online or in person in the UK. And I'm currently developing a group program that will be specifically tailored to spiritual business owners.
Mm.
And that's going to start in April. So I haven't yet promoted it, but yeah, it's coming together at the moment. It's being created.
It is in gestation.
Gestation, yes. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I will put all of your information, the links to your website and social media in the show notes. But is there anything else that you want to share with the people? Share with me, share with us.
Share the people. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I said a lot. I guess
Mhm.
there's something which is um a little bit maybe not controversial, but maybe it will spark something for someone. So I intuitively have sort of connected my endometriosis with a specific um, trauma from my life, specifically with like a extended period of grief
Mm.
in my childhood. Um, and it took me, oh my God, like what, 20 years to like put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I wish someone had, you know, put me on that path sooner in a way, because it would have cleared so much more for me on that journey as well.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, I think, yeah, I came to it at the right time because I had the tools to also deal with it. But I'm really interested in shamanism, and it was someone who was actually shamanic homeopath,
Mm.
who, which is just another conversation,
Yeah.
probably. It's something to explore. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that sometimes the seed is planted for much deeper exploration, and it could be by a shaman, by a menstrual cycle coach, by a fertility awareness educator. It's just, you never know who's going to like plant a seed for something that will really expand you. And I feel like that's really expanded my business, my understanding of trauma and the nervous system and the menstrual cycle as well, for myself and for others. So yeah, I don't know. I thought I wanted to say that it's a bit like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like dark and seedy in a way,
Yeah. That's where all
but
the
it's
best things
that's why
take
it's
root.
so, yeah, that's, yeah, exactly. And that's why I feel
I
like it's potent. Yeah.
absolutely, I
Mm.
definitely agree with this idea of the body being like this living, breathing archive of our emotions,
Mm.
of our ancestry, of the things that have happened and the things that we've internalized. And oftentimes,
Mm.
like, these energetic experiences happen within the body that are felt as emotions. And if we don't have the tools, the skills, or the spaciousness to deal with it, to process it
Mm.
there, then our body takes it on. Our body stores it until we
Yeah.
are able to look at it. And like you were saying, sometimes it's, for lack of a better word, a bigger plan. Like sometimes we are put on this path of healing as a part of
Mm.
our dharmic duty, or as a part of our purpose, as how
Mhm.
we can be of support in the world. And it's definitely not an easy path. Um,
Mm.
but it can be so worthwhile, of like this
Mm.
alchemy of pain into purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
potent.
love that.
Mm. So
Thank you
much
so much.
for your time, for your expertise, for being here. I'm so deeply appreciative. And I'm so excited to amplify your voice in the world, to share what you're doing. It's a pleasure to connect with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Annalise. I loved being a part of this.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Mystic Feminine Fertility Podcast. If you're ready to continue your journey of self-discovery and fertility empowerment, I invite you to explore my free online resource library within the Mystic Cycle Sisterhood. You'll find everything you need to get started on your cyclical path and connect with a supportive community of like-minded women. Until next time, may you continue to honor the sacred rhythm of your body and the wisdom it holds. Take care and keep flowing.